Okay. So what I will do is I'm going to bring you out of the stream like I would do if we were having the show. All right. Okay, here we go. I'll have my producer cut this part out. Welcome to Brain Chat. It is Dr. Mitzi Williams, your board certified neurologist and MS specialist, and I am so excited about tonight's Brain Chat. I've got two amazing global MS advocates to talk about MS around the world, because we know that MS does not just occur in the US, but it is a global condition, and there are many people who are doing amazing work, not just here in the States, but around the world to advocate for those who may not be able to advocate for themselves. And so I've had the pleasure of working with these two wonderful women on an advisory board that we'll talk about a little bit later called MS in the 21st Century. And first, I will bring up Stanca Potra, and I will also bring up Trishna Bharadia. Welcome to Brain Chat, ladies.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I am so excited to speak with you guys. I wish we could see each other in person in some wonderful place across the pond. But of course, life is virtual because of COVID. But I'm so excited to see you virtually and talk about some of the amazing work that you are doing. So why don't we start by you introducing yourselves and telling us a little bit about the work that you do and how you got into advocacy in the MS space. And we'll start with Stanca.
Okay. So hello, everybody. My name is Stanca. I'm from Romania. I was diagnosed with MS approximately 9 years ago. And at the time of my diagnosis, there was so little information about MS, at least in my home country. And I couldn't find any support groups. I couldn't find any other people that had MS that I could talk to. So there was nobody I could rely on with information and support. So, and that kind of led me to start my own support and counseling group for people with MS in my hometown called Smile Center. It's just a small group, but apparently helps a lot of people locally. It's just counseling and support, and it just made the community that I so much needed at the moment of my diagnosis. So I'm really proud of that. And that's how from making that group happen, that's how I got into contact with other large groups and then with international groups of people with MS. And that's how I got, even in the MS in the 21st Century steering group. And I'm also an MS Global Ambassador for MS. And I'm, as of recent month, also part of the steering committee in the MS Brain Health organization. So I try to help. Sometimes I feel like I'm not doing anything. Like I would do so much more, but I feel like I can't do as much as I would like to. But even just talking and sharing my story, I found that helps a lot. And just talking about MS, that's so important, at least here in Romania, where nobody talks about MS, just being very outspoken about it and not being such taboo subject, that's also very important. So that's how I got into where I am right now.
Awesome. Awesome.
I don't know if I should talk about my personal MS, but because I'm really lucky, but because I told you I have it for 9 years, but I'm really lucky that I didn't have many relapses. I've been on treatment for a lot of years, and I'm really hopeful for the future also.
Awesome. Awesome. Amazing. All right, Trishna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Trishna, and I'm based in the United Kingdom. I was diagnosed with MS in 2008 at the age of 28. And very much like Stanca, actually, I got involved into advocacy because my diagnosis wasn't a great experience. I wasn't given much information or support, no signposting. And I kind of felt like myself and my family had been thrown into this black hole, and we kind of had to do everything for ourselves. And I thought, well, and it's part of my upbringing, I think. I've always been taught that if you think something needs to be changed, don't just talk about it, do something. And that's where my advocacy really started. And I started by volunteering with various MS charities in the UK. But then very quickly and quite organically, then started to work with other organizations, including the pharmaceutical industry, non-profits, healthcare professionals and healthcare systems like the NHS in the UK. And now I do lots of things within advocacy. So I do consulting, I speak at a lot of events, I do a lot of writing, a lot of co-creation of information and services. And I'm also a patron and ambassador for various organizations, so including the MS Society in the UK, Asian MS, which is one of the support groups which works under the umbrella of the MS Society. I'm the patient engagement co-editor for the DIA, which is the Drug Information Association Global Forum magazine. I'm a member of the editorial board for Neurology and Therapy Journal, which is one of the Springer Healthcare journals. You name it. I'm also on a national task force to improve diversity in clinical trials in the UK. Being someone who is Asian living with MS has brought about some very, I would say, unique experiences because, I mean, Stanca mentioned that, you know, people in Romania don't talk about MS. Within the Asian community, we also have that. People don't talk about long-term conditions and disability. And there's a lot of prejudice and stigma attached to not being very well or having a disability. So that's actually one of the passions of mine. It's to try to improve diversity within healthcare, try to improve the way in which MS and disability is seen within the Asian community. I actually have a number of family members who have MS. It's not just me. So including, there's about, I think, 4 of us, including my identical twin sister. So it's something which has been very much a huge part of my life since 2008 and actually earlier because of the other people who were diagnosed in my family. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Just probably a fun fact, because I like to throw something fun in. As a result of my advocacy, I was actually chosen to take part in a special 4-part edition of Strictly Come Dancing, which is Dancing with the Stars in the US in 2015. So I always say to people that, you know, being diagnosed with something and getting involved in advocacy, you never know where it might lead. You might end up dancing on television like I did.
Right. Amazing. And okay, so you guys have said so many amazing things just in this first part. So let's just break this down a little bit more. So I'm a huge proponent of self-advocacy. You know, in a perfect world, you know, our healthcare system will be great where we provided all the information you need. I certainly do my best, but I don't do a perfect job. You know, but the thing that I love, starting with Stanca, was that you said, listen, there was no support groups, there was nothing going on. So guess what? I got it started. And so, you know, that's one of the things that I encourage, you know, my patients and the people that I get to serve to do. If you see a gap and you see that it doesn't exist and you see a need, you might be the person to start that initiative or to work in that area. Now, of course, everybody can't do it on the same level, but I love the fact that you saw a need and you said, okay, well, I'm going to start it. You know, it's small and it's making a difference. And look at where it's led you in terms of the other things that you're involved in, which we'll get into a little bit later. And then for you, Trishna, you know, unfortunately, here in the US, we also have many patients who experience what you did when you were diagnosed, where they don't feel like they have the support they need. They don't feel like they understand what's going on, and they begin to seek answers themselves. So I love the fact that you were like, okay, the answers aren't here, but I'm going to get what I need. And that has led you down this amazing path. I promise every time I go on LinkedIn, I see you doing something. I'm like, okay, Trishna's speaking again. Let me go see what Trishna's doing. Or, you know, Stanca's on this panel. Let me go see what she's doing. but Stanca and I get to do a lot of things together. So usually if she's there, I'm there too. So it's really cool. And so talk a little bit about, kind of what, encouraged you to get started and say, okay, well, I don't see this area being filled. Let me get in there and see what I can do. So, because for some people, when they're diagnosed, there's something about taking that first step to say, well, maybe I'm the person, that can do this. And so how do you take that first step into getting into advocacy?
If I can start first, for me, it was really interesting because at the moment of my diagnosis, I was so scared. Like I said, there was not much information and nobody I could talk to that had MS and that I knew had MS, that I didn't tell anybody I had MS. For 6 months, I couldn't even tell my mom. I kept it as a secret. I went to my doctor's appointment. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks because I had my punctual my lumbar function done and a lot of tests, and I went through all of that alone. I couldn't tell anybody. I was really, the sentiment that I had was of shame. I felt very ashamed for having MS and very defeated. And so at that point, after 6 months of just dealing with this by myself, I came up with a plan that when I would tell people I have MS, I would not tell them like I have this disease and I'm a victim, because that I hated when that people would put me down or say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, you're sick," and would look at me in a certain way, like would pity me. And I couldn't bear that, maybe because I'm very like a proud person, or I don't know, but that triggered me to want to do something. So when at the moment when I told people I had MS, I also told them I had a plan to do something else about my MS. And I actually joined local competition called Swimathon. It was a charity event where you would roll in your case, and it was a swimming competition, and you would gather people and make them bid on your project, and just to raise money for a cause. And I enrolled my project in the Smile Center, and I needed money to make the website and to make the everything to start the project. So that's how I enrolled it in the local competition. And I invited all my friends. I told them, listen, I have MS, but I'm also doing something about it. You can help me. Let's raise money and make this project work. And I gained a lot of strength, even because people wouldn't look at me just like I'm a victim. They would look at me like, okay, she's sick, but she's also doing something about it. And just like Trishna, I feel like she's such a positive person every time I see her. She has MS for more than 10 years, and she's dealing with it with a smile on her face every day. And I want to be that also. Like, I strive to also have a smile on my face every time. That's why it's called the Smile Center. People are so upset, and so when they have MS, when they are at the moment of their diagnosis, because I went through all of that at the beginning. I was very upset and depressed, and it's normal, but I don't want to stay there. So I just want to encourage everybody else to get past that. It will pass, and you'll feel better. So I think that was my first step, my first trigger.
Yeah. So I love that. So, to combat the fear and some of the shame and other emotions that you were dealing with your diagnosis, you decided to make a plan to see how you could help your broader community, how you could do something within the MS community to make it better, and to also hopefully keep people from having the exact same experience that you had. So that is amazing. That's amazing. So, making a plan.
Maybe I was, I don't know, I wanted to take the focus from me to the broader issue. And I wanted to do this Smile Center, this counseling and support group for others, because that was my focus, to help others. But by helping them, because we did for over a year, we did a group counseling session with the psychologist. We had it was really interesting and really a great success for our group. But by helping them, I found out it actually helped me back, because I created the community that I needed and I didn't have. And I also could talk about my problems in a space where everybody understood your issues.
Yeah, and that's so important, and one of the things that I try to stress is that, even though I'm a physician, I see people every day with MS, I've been treating people for years. I don't understand what it feels like to have MS. So even though you have family and you have other people who are
Right.
great support, you still also need to connect to the MS community, because those are the people that will understand you the best. And if you can do that in a supportive environment, especially with what you're talking about, Stanca, it's extremely important, and I also encourage folks, if you try a support group and that's not the one for you, because I have some folks that say, well, I went to this one and it made me really depressed and I didn't want to go back. If you try one, it's not the right one for you, then try another one. But you need to connect in some way, and be a part of the community, because they understand MS in a way that I never could, even though I see it a lot and I treat people and I serve people a lot. So tell us, what was kind of that tipping point for you, Trishna?
So I think the tipping point was so actually I saw something literally, I think it was yesterday, it was on Instagram, I think, and it was a caption that said, no one will advocate better for your own health than yourself. Yes. And that's really where I was, because I was handed this diagnosis and essentially given a list of 4 drugs, and I was told to go away and come back in 2 weeks and tell the doctor which drug I wanted to go on. Now, I had no idea. And it was very much about, well, I've got this essentially for life. I need to know this condition inside out. I need to understand how I can make things as positive as possible for myself and my family. Whether that's to do with choosing a drug, whether it's to do with your care plans, whether it's to do with finding the right support networks. Because if you're self-advocating and you're putting yourself in the best position, then you're going to be in the best position to help other people. And I think that's really where it started for me, because I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to change the situation that I was in unless I started to look out for myself and do all the research and find those support networks and things like that. Because it was only then that I could then start recommending to other people, well, this is a really good support network, or have you thought about subscribing to this blog or going to this event, or have you found out about this organization or this support service? I think that what you've just said about finding the right support is really important. Now, the very first support group that I went to wasn't the right support group for me. And, at the time of my diagnosis, I was working full time. I was very active. I was playing competitive league field hockey.
Really? I did not know that.
Oh,
I didn't imagine you playing hockey.
I'm a hockey girl through and through. My whole family is a hockey family. My dad is over 70 and he still plays internationally. Really? Can you believe?
No, does mom play?
Yes. Mom doesn't play, so she's always been the biggest supporter. But so I have. I mentioned I have an identical twin sister. I also have a younger sister as well. We've all played, like literally since we were kids.
I know you dance Zumba. Very.
So interestingly, so the dance came in because it would have been about 6 or 7 years after I was diagnosed. It was increasingly becoming more and more difficult to keep up with playing hockey because of the impact it was having on my body. My fatigue I was playing a match, it was wiping me out for 2 to 3 days afterwards. My muscle fatigue was getting really bad. And I mean, basically it got to the point where I was a danger to myself on the pitch. I was getting injured because I couldn't get out of the way of flying balls quick enough, landed in the ER with some pretty horrible injuries. And that's where my dance came in, because I thought to myself, I need to exercise and staying active has been a huge part of who I am always. And I thought I need to find something else that I love just as much as hockey, but something that I can do where I don't feel like I'm letting anyone down if I can't keep up with the pace. Because when you're playing in a team sport, you have to perform to the same level as everyone else in the team. Also, where I wasn't getting injured because I couldn't get out of the way fast enough. And also something which was inclusive. So if I was to relapse and I needed to, for example, use a wheelchair or a mobility aid, playing competitive league hockey wouldn't be possible, but dance still would be. So this is where it's that sort of, you have to change your mindset. It was very difficult to give up hockey because I say I was born with a hockey stick in my hand. That's how much it's a part of me and my family. But I didn't want to think, well, I've lost that part of my life and always regretted. I wanted to say, okay, well, my MS has brought me to a certain place and has made me change direction. And in the case of my exercise, it made me change in the direction into dance, which I love. And actually, people who know me, who haven't known me sort of all my life, they think about Trishna as being a dancer rather than a hockey player.
Wow.
So this is really where that change in mindset, and also the support as well, because, you know, the support I had from my hockey team was fantastic. But I also found within the dance community a different kind of support, particularly because one of the classes that I do it's an inclusive class. So in that class, we have, so there's a lady with cerebral palsy. We have somebody who is an amputee, somebody who's visually impaired. Everybody, we all have our various issues, but we all come together because of a love of dance. And actually doing those classes has made me, so one of the things, it was one of the first things that I thought about when I was diagnosed was, does that mean I will need to use the wheelchair? And that really, really scared me. But with my dance classes, seeing what everybody else is doing, and we have a number of wheelchair users, I think actually it doesn't scare me anymore because I've seen what's possible. And that's again where that support network and having that positive environment and doing positive things can really, really help. I digressed a bit from your original question.
No, that's amazing. No, that's amazing. So one thing that you said that I really think is important to stress. You said a lot of things that are important, but one piece that I think is really important to stress is the shift in mindset. One of the difficulties that many of the people that I see on a regular basis face is when they can't do something that they used to do. They can become very kind of stuck on that one thing and say, well, gosh, my life is over because I can't do this thing. So I love how you said, I can't do this. It's not safe, but let me find something new that I also love and let me focus on doing that. And so I think that that's a really, really valuable lesson that's difficult. It's definitely, I see many people that really struggle with that. Do you have something that you want to add to that, Stanca?
Yes, I actually do, because before I was diagnosed with MS, I never ran in my life. I never jogged. I did a lot of, I went to the gym, I did Pilates, or I swam, whatever, but I never ran. And when I was diagnosed, after my diagnosis, I remember my neurologist telling me that I should stick to the really slow exercises like Pilates or yoga or stuff like that, and I should never run. And I took that as a personal ambition. I don't know why. And
as a challenge, like I'm gonna show
like
them.
A challenge. I don't know.
It.
Like if you tell me I can do something, I will prove you I can. And I started running after I was diagnosed. I started jogging slowly. And after about a year of training, I competed in semi-marathons, and then I ran 35 kilometers, and I run. Now I run.
Now you run.
Yes, and it's amazing. Yeah, and
Amazing.
it was triggered by the fact that I was diagnosed, and
Yeah.
from a lot of other points of view, my life has improved ever since my diagnosis. Like Trishna said, you have to take care of yourself first if you want to take care of others. So
Yeah.
I learned how to take care of myself, how to listen to my body. If I need more rest, I'll take that rest. I eat healthier. I try to stress less. I'm not very good at that, but
I
I
wish
try
we
to.
all were.
I think that's the hardest challenge
That
for
is
me,
one of the
to
hardest,
stress
but
less.
that's so amazing, that actually after diagnosis, you found ways to take better care of yourself and
Yes.
pay attention. I mean, if I could carry you guys around with me all the time to like all of my talks, like you would just give the talk for me because I mean, you're saying everything. And it's so amazing. So let's shift gears a little bit and let's kind of talk about MS on a global scale. So I've heard you talk about many themes that are very common to things that we see here in the US. Definitely people need information when they're diagnosed. They definitely deal with different feelings of fear. Some people have great experiences when they're diagnosed and have someone that they're able to talk to and kind of talk through things, and others still have folks who hand them pamphlets and tell them to go home and look at them. But are there issues that are unique to your parts of the world or challenges for people living with MS in your parts of the world that may be unique versus maybe what you have heard of experience from those here where I am across the pond, so to speak?
Well, in Romania, MS is very atypical from the rest of Europe and from the rest of US from a lot of points of view. We don't. First, the subject that bothers me the most is access to treatment, because it's not the same for all European countries. We are part of the European Union. We should all get the same treatments, but we don't. And that's it has improved in Romania over the last years. There's another big Romanian organization that is fighting for this, for access to treatment. I actually am a part of that association as well. But so it has improved over the past few years. But I remember when I was diagnosed, we only had one course of treatment, and that was all. You couldn't choose
There was
anything.
only one.
It was like, take it or leave it. Okay, I'll take it. So even now we have a few treatments available, but not all of them, and not the most revolutionary one, not the latest ones. So it's really challenging. Like I said, I'm lucky and I don't need all those the latest treatments available. But if I were in a critical phase of my MS and I needed the latest development, the latest of this and the best of science, I would be very frustrated not to be able to access that treatment that exists, but not in my country.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah, I could imagine that's very tough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
very
very tough to handle.
Yeah.
That's my biggest concern about inequality. There
So
are other
access to
issues, of course. Even access into buildings in Romania, it's chaos, especially if you live in smaller cities, because in larger cities or in big, in developed parts of the Romania, it's better. But there are a lot of people living in the rural parts, and they don't. If they are in a wheelchair, I don't know how they handle themselves. How we don't even have good roads.
So you mean physical access to like the doctor, like in terms of roads
Yes.
and transportation? Okay.
There's so many issues with that. There are so many socio-economical issues connected to MS that interfere with your with this disease. So I think that's particular to. It's different, of course. It's different in different countries, but so the access to treatment, that's my biggest issue of inequality.
Okay, gotcha. What about you, Trishna?
So I'd say that something which is probably quite unique about the UK is that we have the National Health Service. So essentially that means at the point of access, healthcare is free. We all pay taxes and contributions towards obviously running it. But at the point of access, your healthcare is free, which is Absolutely fantastic. And I am so grateful for the NHS. However, it does mean that often people are waiting for a long time to get a diagnosis. It can mean a long time to wait for an MRI scan. In terms of access to treatment, if the treatment's not approved by our body, which is called NICE, it means that even if something is licensed, it doesn't necessarily become available to people on the NHS. So I would say that's probably a uniqueness. I think the other thing is that the UK, very much like in the US, actually, is very, very multicultural. And traditionally, MS has been seen as a Caucasian disease that affects young women. I actually had a conversation with a general practitioner, I think that's an MD in family doctor in the US. And she's a Black GP, and she said to me that when she was in medical school, when they were doing the module about MS, they were told to look out for a Caucasian woman, young, presenting with eye symptoms.
Absolutely.
Well, I know many Asians who have MS who initially were told, well, it can't be MS because you're Asian, and Asians don't get MS. And so living in that multicultural society where you might be waiting a long time for a diagnosis anyway, and then having to fight for, to be heard, really, and to be taken seriously, I think can be an issue. And I also, I don't think there hasn't been enough research or enough awareness raised about how MS affects different communities differently, what those cultural specific issues can be, and how is it that healthcare professionals can learn more about it to better address the issues when they're, for example, in a clinic appointment. That's one of the reasons why I do so much work with, for example, Asian MS, which is, as I mentioned, is one of the national support groups that works under the umbrella of the MS Society. It's to raise that awareness so that doctors, clinicians do understand that there are some cultural issues. And even we know now that, for example, the disease path of, for example, Black people who have MS can be different to somebody who is Caucasian and who has MS. There hasn't been that kind of research yet within the Asian community, and that's something which I think really needs to be done. I consider myself to be a British Asian, and so I understand that there may be things which may affect my disease course, may affect the way that I'm understood by doctors, which are specific to me being Asian, and which make a difference. So I would say those are probably two things which are, like I said, having the NHS and also the sheer multiculturalism of the UK and of our MS community, I think are a couple of things which are quite unique to the United Kingdom, also probably very different to, for example, Stanca's experience in Romania.
Yeah. If I may add something,
sure.
While I totally agree with Trishna, and I feel like it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly what are those symptoms or specifics of different cultures. If you think about it, every person that has MS is different from the next one. Even in Romania, where most of us are Caucasians, okay, but everybody has such a different course of MS that I don't know if you can categorize. I mean, there are the 4 categories of MS, of course, but every person is so different and reacts so differently to the environment, to the treatment, to, I don't know, you can never tell the outcome of MS in the long run for somebody. You cannot predict anything, so it's very difficult to pinpoint those specifics that are for a certain race or culture or anything. It's very difficult, I guess.
Yeah, and I would agree it is difficult. I think, the biggest question, which is a lot of the reason why I do research focused on MS, for instance, in Black Americans or in the Black community, is because there are some research that suggests the outcomes are different, right? So when we see research
in the
that's
long term.
yeah, so that long-term outcomes like disability may be more severe. And so the big question is, is there some underlying, difference in genetics, right? Because the genetics are a little bit different. We're mostly the same, right? Slightly different.
Yeah.
But or is the issue more social determinants of health, like socioeconomic things, which dynamics can be very different in different parts of the world. And so I think, the focus is not necessarily to try to, so ideally in a perfect world, we would be able to predict how someone's going to do, right? So everyone's looking for that marker to tell us, Stanca will respond to this medicine, Trishna will respond to that medicine. But when we see kind of trends, I think the question becomes, is there something that we're missing that's unique to this community that may tell us about the whole MS community, right? So the goal is not just studying small groups of people to treat people differently, but could we look at, for instance, this characteristic of this group and see if maybe finding out what's causing that outcome can affect or help everybody who has MS. So I think the goal of any kind of looking at certain groups is to help the whole group, but also to help the whole of everybody who's dealing with the condition. So let's switch gears again and talk a little bit about MS in the 21st century, how I got to meet you wonderful ladies. It is a very unique group of MS advocates, people living with MS. There are researchers, there are physicians who are part of the group, nurses, and others. And it is one of the first groups. I mean, I do a lot of listening, but I'm telling you, since I've been a part of this steering committee, I have done an extreme amount of listening, and I've learned so much from you ladies and others who are living with MS around the world. And so one of the cool things about it is that there are people living with MS. There are also, healthcare practitioners, and we come together, we pick a topic after we vote on the topic. Sometimes we get outvoted, sometimes we don't. But we pick a topic, we focus on that topic, we develop like a research question, we explore that question, and then we try to come up with an intervention. And it is one of the most unique experiences I've ever been a part of. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved and, some of the great things that have come out of that work.
Should I start?
Yeah, I'll let you start. Go ahead and start, Stanca.
Because you've been on there longer than I.
Yeah.
So Stanca is our veteran member.
I'm not that veteran, but I've been in the steering group longer than you have. So I was actually recruited in this steering group. I was in an international event for global ambassadors for MS. It was in Boston. And I was doing a speech on the scene, and I guess I impressed somebody, and somebody from the MS in the 21st century, and they approached me and asked me to join this group that actually felt like it was surreal, because it's a group of both neurologists and healthcare professionals and people with MS coming together, joining ideas, everybody listening to each other, and you felt like you had a voice from speaking from an MS patient point of view. Because from my experience from Romania, from where I am, you tend, as a patient, as an MS patient, you tend to leave everything that's related to your disease up to the neurologist, to the healthcare professional's decision. He knows best. He tells you everything you have to do. You just sit back, you take the second gear, and you just wait for them to direct you. But like we talked about this even earlier today, you have to take charge of your own condition, and you can. It doesn't matter that it doesn't mean that you are overstepping into the physician's place, but you have to take charge of yourself, and you have to be informed. It's your responsibility to get informed about your disease and to know what you're actually talking to when you're going into the neurologist's office. So it was very different from the background that I came, to actually see that healthcare professionals listen to my opinion, and they ask me how do I see this issue and how do I see the other one, and just joining ideas together. I think that's amazing, and the results are really great, and I think could help the entire community of people with MS while dealing with their healthcare professional in communication, especially because that's what we're trying to do there in the steering group. We try to gap that communication. We try to fill that communication gap between the two parties. So that's how I joined them, and it's been a really nice experience for me. It's great to work with them, and I know we developed some communication tools in the steering group that I think Trishna can tell us more. Some of them have been implemented in UK. I'm sorry they haven't in Romania so far. It's very difficult. I think the language is also a barrier here, and there are so many other barriers, but I'm glad to see things are moving, and I'm just hopeful that we can reach a broader community and just expand our tools to everybody that needs them, actually.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about some of the tools, which I know that both of you are very vocal about, what you think in terms of if we're going in the right direction, if there are other things that we need, because really a lot of the work we do is focused on the doctor-patient or healthcare provider-patient communication. And I think we all have realized that there's some gaps. As a doctor, there's some things that we think we're saying that we're not really saying. There's some things that we think we're addressing that's not coming across. And there's some things that people with MS want to talk about that maybe we don't want to talk about. And so, I think it's really been an eye-opening experience. So if you want to talk about maybe your top 2 favorite projects that have come out of
it, Trishna. I would choose.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I can tell you my opinion, because while for me personal, I think my MS priorities is the most useful one, because it's like a note that you settle before going to the healthcare professional. He in 1 second can see your history. He can see when you had your last relapse, what treatment are you on, and he doesn't need to fill in the gaps, sort of to speak. So I think that's a really good organizer. So I like that. But what I find very, very useful, and I think at least here in Romania, where like I said, people with MS still need to be empowered about taking control of their disease, of their condition, is the MS, the MS commitments, because that really gives, it's like a contract, sort of to say. I like to say it like it's a contract with 2 sides. The healthcare professional is the one providing the healthcare, but the MS patient doesn't mean he's just the receiver. Right. He has obligations himself. He needs to monitor himself. He needs to adhere to the treatment. He needs to get informed. He also has some responsibilities, and that's the commitment that they share, both of them, that they both care about the MS. So I find that could be the most helpful one. These are my top priorities, my top tools.
Awesome. And your top? That's okay. Yeah. No, your top 2, Trishna. Before
so I have to agree with Stanca, actually, particularly around the MS commitments. I think it's very easy to just let your neurologist, your MS nurse, your healthcare professionals to just take charge and do everything. But I do feel that there should be shared decision making. You have to take responsibility for yourself and your own healthcare. And what this does is it encourages that. And actually, all of the tools and the resources which are produced by MS in the 21st century, that's what they do. They really encourage shared decision making. They're helping patients to take that step and to build the confidence and have those tools in which they can go to their healthcare professional and say, I want to be part of this decision. I want to be able to take some responsibility. And it creates that two-way dialogue. The other thing which I think is really great that MS in the 21st Century does is that out of all the survey, because people will often see on all of our social media, actually we share surveys and things like that. And what happens to all of that information is that that it all gets studied and analysed, and then reports are produced and manuscripts, for example, for journals, and it's presented at conferences and things like that. So it's not about whatever is produced just stays within a small community. It's being shared in the wider MS community so that, people from all around the world literally are able to learn from the research that MS in the 21st Century is doing. And I think that's really great, and also a really good way of encouraging particularly patients to get involved in authorship of research, essentially. And if other people can see that that's possible, they might then think, oh, that's something I might like to get involved in. I presented a poster presentation at a conference. Never in a million years would I have ever thought that that was going to be possible. I gave up science after the age of 16, and so things like that I think are really great. And MS in the 21st Century has done really well in terms of bringing that research to much wider audiences and much wider platforms. So that everybody can learn from what we're doing. One of the things I love, though, and I do have to mention this, is when we're having our steering group meetings, what I love seeing is the debates that go on between the healthcare professionals.
Oh, yes. Lots of debates.
It's absolutely brilliant.
We can't agree on anything.
Exactly.
we do eventually, but everybody has their own opinion.
That's exactly what I love about this group, that you can have your own opinion and everybody listens to your opinion. It's not like the healthcare professionals don't dismiss you just because you are an MS patient.
Exactly.
I know better because I went to medical school.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I love it. Well, as we are coming to a close, lady, this has been an amazing, amazing discussion. Like I said, I wish I could carry you around in my pocket when I go give talks, because you're saying everything. I promise I haven't paid them to say this stuff. They are just amazing advocates. But as we close, tell us, just why don't you, for the people out there, give one piece of advice that you would give to someone who is starting out on their journey with MS or at a transition in their journey with MS. Just one piece of advice that, you think would be valuable to folks out there.
So I think I would say that, so I know you said that you would love to carry us around in your pocket because we're so positive and things like that. It's not always like that. And, there are times when it is hard and you do feel down and you think, how am I going to get through this? I think the important thing is to build the support around you. Make sure that you have people around you that you can talk to, that you can lean on, because on those bad days, I have bad days, and it's not that, yes, people think I'm positive all the time, but actually, no, both Stanca and I, we're still human, and we have our bad days. And, there are times when things are tough. But what I think we've both done is we've built really good support networks around us so that when we're having those bad days, we have people that we can lean on and places that we can go, so that those bad days don't become a forever day, if that makes sense. And that support is invaluable. So I would say, if you're just diagnosed or you're going through a difficult time, that's what you need to do, because that's what will get you through.
Absolutely. Stanca?
Yeah, I love what Trishna just said. That's very, very true. Also, what I would recommend, what I would advise anybody that's recently diagnosed is to take a deep breath and take their time to adjust to having MS. I remember when I was diagnosed, I was so desperate to get the treatment, get everything done, like it was a disease I would want to get rid of as soon as possible. You have to understand that MS is something you have for your entire life. It's not going anywhere. You can take a deep breath and relax and figure everything out. You don't have to figure everything out right at the moment of the diagnosis. I wanted to quit my job. I wanted to do everything right then and just figure out what I'm going to do. I was so desperate with dealing with everything, you know. You can take it easy and it will be okay. I was very scared of not having a relapse immediately after diagnosis. It's okay if you have a relapse. You're gonna have more relapses, and they're all gonna pass, and you're gonna be fine. I mean, if you're on the right course. But just take a deep breath, I think, and try to take your time.
Okay.
And
got it.
So
take a deep breath and build a support network. Amazing and very timely advice. Ladies, tell us where to find you on social media so that folks can look you up and follow you.
I think Trishna is very vocal on social media.
Yes, Trishna is very vocal on social media.
So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, just search for Trishna Bharadia. My handle on Twitter and Instagram is @Trishna Bharadia. On Facebook, I'm Trishna Bharadia 2015. So very easy. I think there's only one Trishna Bharadia out there, actually. I have done a few searches. I've never found another one of me. So very easy to find me.
Gotcha.
Well, I'm also on Facebook and Twitter as Stanca, but I also have a handle for Centrul Smile, for the Smile Center. Like I said, on Twitter is Smile Center, I think, and on Facebook it's Centrul Smile because it's in Romanian. It's a Facebook page. But you people can contact me personally. I love to talk to people. I think my phone number is actually listed on the website on Smile Center, and I get a lot of phone calls from people from Romania that need advice.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Well, ladies, it has been absolutely my pleasure to chat it up with you today. And I look forward to seeing you at our next meeting when we can meet in person. Everyone have a wonderful, absolutely. So everyone have a wonderful day. And thank you for watching.